Wrestling papers. So you're telling me that you summoned a demon or a devil to get a pony. In exchange for that pony, you had to sign a contract. Did you read the contract by any? No? Okay. Well, you should have let me done an episode about the Warlock first, but I guess I'll have to do it now. Howdy, hi, and hello. Welcome to Noah's Nest, where I, Noah, will be discussing each and every class through D&D 5e. If you couldn't tell, I will be doing the Warlock today. This is the class where you are kind of the cleric equivalent, but more devilish, demon, fae pact. Instead of following a god and praying to it, you go to the specific entity and say, hey, I want your powers. Let's make a deal. Let's sign a contract about it. And maybe, hopefully, you'll get to sign a contract. And make sure you read the fine print, though, where you might end up having to either never live past your 50, maybe whenever you die, they get your soul. That's the usual thing. Maybe it's any kids that you have immediately go to him or it, and they don't get a life, so on and so forth. You are kind of selling your soul, selling something that you have in exchange for powers that this entity will give you. As usual, I will go through all of the levels, 1 through 20, then I will go through the subclasses or overworldly patrons for this one, and we will rate it. Okay? First and foremost, you immediately get your overworldly patron. You've already talked to someone, you have already bargained with a entity of sorts, and you will start getting powers by them. Instead of spellcasting, you get pact magic. This is where you're able to use the highest level spell, but you will only have 2 to maybe 4 spell slots. So you're very, very spent on them. You're not like a wizard where you'll have like 3 4s, 5 1s, and so on and so forth. You get 1 through 4 spell slots through the whole entire game. But the good thing about it is that you gain them all back during a short rest. At second level, you get Eldritch Invocation. This is where your entity, your patron, gives you some extra boost, some extra abilities, so you aren't just squishy and die immediately. So that could be an array from you no longer have to sleep, maybe you get an extra damage boost to a certain spell of yours, maybe you can read all types of writing, maybe get an additional bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls, maybe create a familiar, so on and so forth. There are many, many different invocations that you can choose from, and as you level up, you're able to get more and more. At level 3, you get Pact Boon. This is where, since you've been so loyal for so long, you're able to get a pact of something. So your entity will give you something since you've been with them for a while. So you can either get Pacted the Blade, where you'll be able to be proficient in a weapon of your choice. The weapon will count as magical and overcome resistances and immunities to non-magical attacks and damage. You can only be proficient in this weapon for the Pact of the Blade. You're able to put it into an extra dimensional space and pull it out any point in time. If you end up dying or losing it, it takes an hour to reform it. Or if you want to change weapons, it also takes an hour to change weapons. Next is Pack of the Chain. This is where you can learn and create a familiar to help you through your adventure. And there are other invocations that can help you along the way to boost up your familiars. And lastly, it's Pact of the Tome. This is where you get to learn more spells from different classes. They don't have to be from the same list. There can be like one from Artificer, one from Druid, and then one from Wizard. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing that goes with the weapon. If you lose it, you have to create it, like summon it back or replace it after an hour. It's pretty much helping you extend your knowledge on other spells. At 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level, you get an ability score improvement, where you can increase one ability score by 2 or 2 ability scores by 1. They can't go over 20, sadly, but if you also don't really care of doing the ability scores improvements, you can choose a feat instead. At 11th, 13th, and 15th, and 17th level, you get Mystic Arcanum. This is where you get to learn an additional spell of a higher level. That's 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And you can cast it without using a spell slot. And that goes with each one. So if you end up using the 7th level and the 9th level, you can still use the 8th and 6th level one. They all count for their own. And you regain them all back after you finish a long rest. At level 20 is Eldritch Master. This is where you can spend a minute talking to your patron or using its energy to regain all your expended spell slots for your pact magic. And once you regain them, you don't get them until you finish a long rest. Now into the optional class features. At first level, you get more Warlock spells. This comes from Tasha's Cauldron to Everything and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. You can get Green Flame Blade, Summon Aberrations, Tasha's Overworldly Guise, and even Blade of Disaster. At third level is another Pact Boon option, where it's called Pact of the Talisman. This is where you're given an amulet or talisman where it'll aid you whenever you need it. If you ever happen to fail an ability check, you can add a d4 to the roll, potentially rolling a success. You can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and all of the uses are restored after a long rest. Same thing applies if you end up losing it or you die and come back. It takes an hour to replace it. At 4th level is Eldritch Versatility. You can replace one of your cantrips if you reach a level that grants you an ability score improvement. You can replace a Pact Boon, so if you have the Talisman, you can change it to the Chain or to Blade. And if you're 12th level or higher, you can replace one of your Mystic Arcanum features with another Warlock spell of that same level. Now into the subclasses, aka the Overworldly Patrons. First up is the Archfey. This is where you are going down the line of being or have made a deal with a Feywild creature. More whimsical, maybe more greater power. It might come from like the Queen of Air and Darkness, maybe from a certain court in the Feywild, or other things. Right off the bat, you get an expanded spell list. You'll already know these spells as you level up. Throughout this subclass, you could make enemies Throughout this subclass, you can make enemies make a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they can be charmed or frightened. You'll be able to turn invisible and then teleport. You can be immune to being charmed, and if a creature tries to charm you, you can use your reaction to kind of do the Uno reverse and hopefully making them charmed to you. Or you can make an illusion to make another enemy become charmed or frightened. You can change the illusion however you want. The creature is lost in type of a mind warped realm. You can change it however you want. This subclass focuses on being or charming and frightening people. Next is Celestial. This is where you are taking powers from a type of god. Maybe even a unicorn or a solar, some type of good being. You might be inclined to annihilate the undead, defeat fiends, maybe even protect innocents. Right off the bat, you get an expanded spell list, gives you more healing spells. At first level, you'll get to learn Light and the Sacred Flame cantrip. You'll also be able to heal wounds a lot easier. You can even use a bonus action to spend the dice and give them to allies. You'll be resistant to radiant damage, and if you would cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage, you can add your charisma modifier to one of those rolls to one of the targets. You'll also be able to gain temporary hit points equal to your Warlock plus charisma modifier, and you can also choose up to 5 creatures that also gain this. And also, if you would make a death saving throw, you can spring back up to your feet. You'll regain hit points equal to half of your hit point maximum, and each creature that's within 30 feet of you will take radiant damage and be blinded until the end of your turn. So kind of a saving grace. Next is the Fathomless. This is focusing on the underwater, deep sea, maybe elemental plane of water area. You might have talked to this entity from a shipwreck, or maybe about to drown. But it's hard for you to know what is actually in the depths. It could maybe be a kraken, maybe an ancient water elemental, who knows. Firstly, you get an expanded spell list by dealing with more storm-based spells. Throughout this subclass, you'll be able to use a bonus action and to create tentacles that deal damage, that have a reach of 10 feet. You're able to move those tentacles as well as a bonus action. You'll also be able to gain a swimming speed of 40 feet and breathe underwater. Along with that, you can gain a resistance to cold, and even if you are fully submerged underwater, you can understand your speech and understand other speech. Whenever you or a creature would take damage, whenever you're within 10 feet of a tentacle, you can reduce the damage by a d8, and it will increase as you level up as well. You'll get to learn a spell called Avard's Black Tentacles, where you can cast it once without a spell slot. It is making more tentacles, maybe a bit more beefier, and dealing more damage. And also, you can use an action to teleport yourself along with 5 other creatures that you see within 30 feet of you. You all vanish, and will reappear up to 1 mile away in a body of water that you see. Next is the Fiend. This is where you're making a deal with the lower planes, aiming more towards evil things. You might want to destroy all things, maybe even including yourself. You might try to make a pact with maybe a Demogorgon, maybe Bahamut, Asmodeus, so on and so forth. You'll get an expanded spell list, you'll get more fiery spells, whenever you would reduce a creature to 0 hit points, you can gain temporary hit points based on your charisma plus warlock level. Whenever you would make an ability check or saving throw, you can add a d10 to that roll. You'll also be able to choose a type of damage where you'll be gaining resistance to it for the whole entire day until you choose differently after a short or long rest. And lastly, if you would hit a creature with an attack, you can instantly transport it to one of the lower planes. At the end of your next turn, it'll return, and if it's not a fiend, it'll take 10d10 psychic damage. Next is the Genie. You're making a pact with the one that gives you wishes. They are more on the elemental side. Maybe elemental creatures, maybe even lesser genies. You could gain like wind powers and such. So you will get to choose the elemental type, earth, air, fire, water. And you will be able to gain spells based on which element you focus on. Throughout this subclass, you'll be able to create a tiny vessel for your genie or yourself. It'll be your spell focus as well. You can choose the type of vessel. That can be an urn, oil lamp, or you can just choose yourself. You'll also have 2 different types of actions with this. You can magically vanish and enter into your vessel as an action. It's an extra dimensional space of 20 feet radius cylinder and 20 feet high. It resembles your vessel. You can stay in there to a number of hours equal to twice your proficiency bonus. If you exit the vessel early if you use a bonus action to leave or die, or if the vessel is destroyed. You are able to create a new one. And also, you're able to deal extra damage based on your elemental type when you hit a creature. You'll also be able to gain a resistance to the type of damage that your genie is, or Jinn. Earth will be bludgeoning, wind will be thunder, fire will be the fire genie, and then water will be cold. And also, as a bonus action, you can gain a flying speed of 30 feet that lasts for 10 minutes, where you can also hover. As you level up, you'll be able to bring other willing creatures within your genie bottle, genie vessel, and you can eject them from your vessel as well. And lastly, as an action, you can speak to your genie to request the effects of one spell that is 6th level or lower. It can be from any class, and you don't have to meet any of the requirements of the spell, including the components, but you won't be able to use this feature until you finish 1d4 long rests. Next is the Great Old One. Think of more Cthulhu, more of an ancient being ancient entity that has been around for many, many years. This is kind of like the Papa or the OG Warlock. You'll get an expended spell list. You'll be able to speak telepathically to other creatures that is within 30 feet of you, and you won't have to share a language with it. You'll be able to turn an enemy's failed strike into a good luck for yourself. So if a creature makes an attack roll against you, you can use your reaction to make it have disadvantage, and if they miss, you get advantage. You'll have resistance to psychic damage, and whenever a creature deals psychic damage, they take that same amount as if they've done it to you, and you can use an action to touch an incapacitated humanoid. That creature will be charmed by you until a remove curse is cast upon it. You can commute telepathically with your charmed creatures as long as you two are on the same plane of existence. Next is the Hexblade. This is where you are focusing more on the Shadowfell now, but also focusing on your magical weapon. They'll give you a type of weapon, maybe a mighty sword, a great axe of some sort, but the power comes from that weapon that was created from the Shadowfell. You'll get an expended spell list. You'll be able to use a bonus action and curse a target for up to a minute, where you will be able to deal bonus damage, possibly hit a critical hit easier, and gain hit points back if that cursed target dies. Along with that, you can touch a weapon that you are proficient in and that lacks the two-handed property. Once you do that and you attack with that weapon, you can use your charisma modifier instead of your strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls. After a long rest, you can change it and other things. Next, if you would ever slay a humanoid, a specter would rise from that creature, from that entity, where it'll gain temporary hit points equal to half of your Warlock level, and it will obey your commands until the end of your next long rest, or if you choose it to rest in peace. If someone would have a curse on it that would attack you, you can use your reaction to roll a d6. On a 4 or higher, the attack misses, no matter what it rolls. And if a creature that is cursed by your curse dies, you can apply the curse to a different creature within 30 feet of you. If you do it that way, you will not regain hit points from the death of that creature. Next is the undead. This is maybe more liches. They defy the cycle of life and death. They have known a lot of knowledge and secrets along the way. It might be a demi-lich, a lich, maybe even a vampire. You'll get an expended spell list. As a bonus action, you can transform up to a minute, where you'll gain temporary hit points. You can make a creature make a saving throw if you would attack on a roll, and if they fail, they get frightened, and you'll be immune to the frightened condition in this form. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. Also, whenever you would hit a creature with an attack roll or damage against a creature, you can replace the damage type with necrotic damage. You will have resistance to necrotic damage, and with your transformation, you will become immune to necrotic damage. And if you would ever reduce to 0 hit points, you can use your reaction to drop to 1 instead. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you will take necrotic damage equal to 2d10 plus your Warlock level. Then you would gain a level of exhaustion. And lastly in this one is As an action, you can project your spirit from your body, where your body will become unconscious. Your spirit can remain outside your body for up to an hour or until your concentration is broken. You'll gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. If you're casting a spell of the necromancy or conjuration school, you don't require verbal or somatic or material that lack the gold cost. You have a flying speed where you can move through creatures, but you would take 1d10 if you end your turn inside a creature or an object. And also your transformation. Once in your turns, you can deal necrotic damage to a creature, where you'll be able to regain equal to half the amount of necrotic damage dealt. And last but certainly not least is the Undying. This is more of a Vecna, maybe more Lich-wise, where you are choosing not to die. You've spent many days and nights creating yourself to be immortal. You gain an expended spell list. You'll be able to gain the Spare the Dying cantrip, and undead will have difficulty harming you. If an undead targets you with an attack, they have to make a wisdom saving throw. And if they fail, the creature must choose a new target. On a success, the creature is immune to that effect. You'll also be able to regain hit points whenever you would succeed a death saving throw, or if you would stabilize a creature with Spare the Dying. You don't require food, water, or sleep, although you still require rest to reduce exhaustion if you have it. And also you age at a slower rate, so for every 10 years that pass, your body ages only 1 year, and you are immune to being magically aged. And lastly, on your turn, as a bonus action, you can regain hit points equal to a d8 plus your Warlock level. Additionally, if you put a severed body part of yours back in place, the part will reattach. And that's everything with the Warlock. The Warlock can be good. I don't really enjoy that you have so minimal amount of spell slots, but I do understand that because you can cast up to 5, 7, 8th level of a fireball. And I mean that, like, you're level 7, all of your spell slots will be at max level 4. So if you cast a first level spell on your spell list, it'll be automatically put to the 4th level. But other than that, it is a very nice class, but it can be a bit confusing through the pack magic and your invocations, because they give you other spells without using spell slots. So in my opinion, I would rate this out of a 10, 7.5. It can be good if you've been playing D&D for a while, but to start out as, I would start with a different class. Before I end this, I am going to do a couple shoutouts. Firstly is Cody from Killer Mimic Merch. He is making designs. He has put out different designs on his website from Jason, quote unquote Jason, Mousetrap. He has beanies, sweatpants, like tarot card shirts. They are all very, very well done. And if you are looking for something new, if you're looking for something nice for the Halloween season coming up, or almost here, or here, check him out on Instagram and Facebook and his website at Killer Mimic Merch. All of his stuff will be in the episode description. Next is Hope K Thrifts. She is a secondhand reseller that focuses on cheap and fashionable clothes to sustain the environment. Trendy brands like Lululemon, Free People, Converse, Nike. And you already know that all of these different brands cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars to buy. And who has that kind of money these days? Well, everything that she sells is only $20 or less. So you're already getting a massive, massive steal. And also, if you want an even better deal, send her the code CHEAPTHRIFTS to get 10% off at your next purchase. So, even a bigger steal. You can find her at Poshmark, Depop, Mercari, Instagram, and so much more at Hope K Thrifts. Check her out. She finds a lot of good shit. And last but certainly not least is us, Creatures and Cantrips. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We're gonna be starting that YouTube thing up, hopefully. We do have a new campaign coming up. Maybe we've already recorded an episode or two. Wink, wink. We will be doing a Halloween special too with one of our other friends, which he is an amazing DM. His name is Tyler. We are unsure if we're doing a D&D themed D&D or if we're doing a different system. So you should check that out whenever it comes out. Like, share, comment, subscribe, follow, rate us 5 stars, send us feedback. We're always open to hear your suggestions. Thank you all for listening. I hope you figure out how to deal with that signed contract. But, hey, a deal's a deal. Good night. Have a good evening, guys.
Later.